Hey team, what's up? It's Dr Sasha here, the chiropractor with Siôn Williams, a local naturopath.
Hey guys.
And so today we've come together, we're just going to sit down and have a bit of a chat and talk about the immune system and inflammation, especially in light of this sort of coronavirus hysteria that's come about, and just share with you guys a bit of information, some things that you can do at home to boost your immune system. So first, you guys can find Siôn. Where can you find yourself, Siôn?
Okay, so you can find me on Facebook under Siôn Williams Naturopath. You can find me on YouTube under Healing Humans. I also have a podcast called Interview with the Naturopath. It's available on Spotify and all the other major platforms. And also I have a website, sionnwilliams.com.au. And Sasha, if you're looking for Sasha, you have a...
You can find me on Facebook. So we'll be sharing on this page here. So feel free to like us, give us a thumbs up and follow us. And also follow Siôn and check out his platforms as well.
Absolutely, a lot of very good, interesting content, especially with Sasha coming up now with all the content he's going to be putting on his page. Make sure you stay tuned because there's a lot of very valuable and more importantly free advice, which is all very helpful and is actionable as well. You can actually use this stuff. This isn't just fluff. It's really actionable stuff. So let's get into it, my man.
Yeah, so today we want to start off by talking a bit about the immune system. So what is the immune system? The different components of the immune system and why your immune system is important, what it actually does.
All right, so the human immune system you can categorize into two different categories. So you have the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system. So the innate immune system is, I guess it's the general immune system. It's an army of white blood cells that patrol around the body constantly. They seek out and they destroy foreign bodies, objects. They look for trauma. You have these little cells called mast cells that are all over your body. As soon as they detect anything from blunt force trauma to a cut or an infection, anything, a bit of dirt, speck of dust, they immediately release this thing called histamine into the surrounding tissue, and that creates swelling. And when it swells, your capillaries and all your blood vessels, they swell, and that allows all the white blood cells to come out into the area. So that's not just white blood cells, we're talking like clotting factors, platelets, all different immune factors that help to effectively isolate the area and then begin the healing process. It's called the inflammation cascade.
Okay.
One of the most important parts of your innate immune system is your skin. Your skin is the best barrier you have against the external environment and everything that's constantly attacking us. Also in our bodies, from our mouth and our respiratory tract all the way down to the rear end, we have a thing called our mucous membrane, and that is like a mucus, and what it's designed to do is it's designed to trap foreign bodies, bacteria, anything that shouldn't be there effectively. Anything the body recognizes as a foreign object will be trapped into that mucus and then excreted. And we also have that in the urinary tract as well, so that's where you pee out of. That has also has its own microcosm or microbiome of bacteria and mucus and excretions, which we all hate. But it's all part of the natural defense mechanism we call our innate immune system. We have white blood cells that are categorized in so many different things. We have natural killer cells, we have macrophages, we have phagocytes, which in these phagocytes, they're little cells that go around gobbling up bacteria, viruses, anything that shouldn't be there. You got your macrophages. These guys break down cells and cell parts. Once these big boy white blood cells that we call natural killer cells, they come along and they just destroy redundant cells or infected cells or anything like that. So they're really important. And so that's our innate immune system. And then we have our adaptive immune system. So we have these tiny little cells called dendrites. And they are everywhere. Anything, they're in your sinus cavity. I'll use the sinuses as a perfect example because of things like hay fever. As soon as those little dendrites, they detect anything on the surface of the skin or anything that's trying to invade that sinus cavity, they immediately release, it's like histamine. It's another immune factor that stimulates lymphocytes, and you have these B and T lymphocytes, and what they are, they're effectively, so you have and I get this wrong sometimes, So I believe it's your B cells are your memory cells, and your T cells are the ones that release antibodies. And so antibodies are specifically designed for certain viruses or bacteria. Each antigen is specific to a certain bacteria. Like your body recognizes the difference between E. coli and Salmonella and things like that.
Yep.
And it tags, and what it'll do is release these antibodies into the bloodstream, and they tag onto certain bacteria. So let's say you have an E. coli antibody, it'll tag onto only the E. coli bacteria, but it will leave the Salmonella alone. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so it sort of remembers.
So this is how our body
past
knows the
pathogens,
difference between good and bad bacteria, you see, is antibodies.
Yep.
And then we have these B cells, and these B cells are lymphocytes, and they are like memory cells. So they remember, for example, it remembers E. coli from a previous infection, so it knows how to, it makes the response quicker, because sometimes it can take days for your body to initiate that immune response, that adaptive immune response. It can take days, whereas innate response is almost instantaneous.
Okay.
As soon as the body comes in contact, or the immune system comes in contact with something that the innate immune system is dealing with, it happens straight away, whereas the adaptive immune system can take a few days to happen. But and so that's the immune system sort of in a nutshell. I mean, we have an entire lymphatic system, which is considered, that's where your immune system lives. So if you had to point to a part of your body that was your immune system, it would be your lymphatic system.
Okay.
A lot of your lymph tissues, like lymph nodes, tonsils, adenoids, your appendix and things like that, they're all part of the immune system.
Yeah.
Although I don't think that's really how it's described in a lot of the anatomy and physiology textbooks. I believe it's starting to change now.
Yeah, so they're not completely redundant organs.
No,
so
they're definitely not. Your appendix is the major lymph organ of your GI tract, so having it removed is not always a great idea.
Yeah. It seems to be quite a common thing, having your appendix removed out. Yeah.
But it's not always that great.
Yeah.
But they believe that the appendix is the organ that reseats all the bacteria, good bacteria, back into your bowel after you've had, so like diarrhea, or you've had some antibiotics or something like that. So they believe that's what it's for.
Yeah,
it
right.
reseats it all this way, where all the bacteria hides during periods of diarrhea and things like that. And then as soon as that's over, it all can just resurface back into the bowel, because it's got to compete with things like fungus, yeasts, and all other protozoas and parasites for room inside your gut, and so it needs to get a head start.
So, constant competition for
And so the appendix is effectively an area where the bacteria can flourish from and reseat the microbiome in your gut.
Yeah, but I heard a large portion of your immune system is in your gut.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, that's quite important to
it is. Yeah. Gut health is massively important.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about it these days. We've never used to, but I believe there's the conversation now on gut health is huge. I think everyone understands that on a fundamental level.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more common to hear people having an understanding about gut health. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, and then there's something that you mentioned as well, which was interesting. You have the two sort of divisions of our immune system. You mentioned histamine as well. And when I talk a little bit more about histamines and antihistamines, and then common pharmaceutical medications that we sort of take, or people often take without even thinking about it, and how that sort of affects your immune system.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, really good question. So histamine is an immune factor in both parts of our immune system, or both systems of the immune system. It's really important in that it's what calls your immune system to action when the little mast cells, well, they're not little, the big mast cells in all your body, when they detect something, histamine is what they release into the bloodstream, and that is like a call to action to your white blood cell army to say, come to this area, this is where we need you.
Yep.
Now, when you're taking something like an antihistamine for hay fever or something like that, like, you have to realize that it's stopping your nose from running, yes, but it's also suppressing that histamine or that inflammation response in your body. And if you're suppressing that histamine, what you're effectively doing is stopping your body being able to react to anything that's effectively invading your body. If you have viruses, bacteria, if you have even like a speck of dust or anything that's entered your body cannot respond to it.
Yeah.
And so what you end up with is an overabundance of foreign matter in your body, and as soon as the histamine or the antihistamine wears off, your body goes into overdrive, because all of a sudden it's no longer being suppressed, so now it's got to go into overdrive to deal with everything that has been invading your body for the last 4 or 5 hours that the antihistamine's been active in your body. All of a sudden, your body's got to go in overdrive, and so it's a bit counterproductive. But then I'm a naturopath, and that's how I look at it.
Other common medications that we take, mentioned before, we're having a chat, ibuprofen.
Ibuprofen is a big one. So ibuprofen is an anti-inflammatory. It's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, because steroidal anti-inflammatories are not that common. Well, I would hope they're not that common, but over-the-counter things like ibuprofen and not so much paracetamol. Paracetamol is an analgesic, so it's a pain reliever. But ibuprofen is an anti-inflammatory, and it effectively does the same thing. It suppresses the immune response, which is that histamine response. And so it prevents your body from being able to naturally respond to trauma, be it like, once again, blunt force trauma. Maybe you hurt your knee in a soccer match. It's swollen, you take some ibuprofen because, you've got to go out drinking tonight. And so your knee's swollen. Right. You got to go out, and you can't go out with a swollen knee, because I don't know how you're going to cut sick on the dance floor if you haven't got that knee, function of your knee. And so what happens is believe it or not, the swelling of your knee is a natural mechanism used to isolate or to, stop you from using it.
And protective mechanism.
And it's to stop you from using it. But while that's happening, all that swelling, it's once again, it's histamine. It's creating that swelling. All the capillary beds have opened up. You've got a massive amount of platelets, clotting factors. You've got what else? You've got white blood cells. Everything. And what they're doing is they're breaking down the damage and initiating the healing process. And so if you are taking ibuprofen and like an anti-inflammatory, you're effectively increasing the amount of time it's going to take for your body to heal that knee, if that makes any sense. And that's why, in my view, anti-inflammatories are not that great, or pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories are not that great. Herbal medicine anti-inflammatories work on a different level to what pharmaceuticals do. But it's interesting. But if you do damage yourself in whatever way, you have an injury. I mean, obviously, if you need to take anti-inflammatories for quality of life and things like that, then yes. But be aware that if your goal is to heal that knee, then taking anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen, or even worse, prednisone, which is a steroid-based anti-inflammatory, you're going to increase your healing time dramatically. It's going to take 4 or 5 times longer than somebody who doesn't take these medications.
And just talking about an injury or sort of blunt force trauma as well. People often, as a chiropractor, often ask me should I put ice, should I put heat? I mean, in that acute stage of an injury, a lot of the new research suggests that the ice is great for pain management. Like if it's sore, you need to manage the pain. But in terms of healing, that response is a natural response from the body, and your body knows what to do, right? You just need to let it do what it needs to do, and that inflammation, that swelling is there for a reason. So masking that swelling and trying to reduce it straight away, whether it be using pharmaceuticals or ice, may actually not be the best thing. And the research suggests that unless you're in absolute, quite terrible pain, then maybe pop a bit of ice on, but otherwise just let the swelling, let the heat, do its thing and clean up that injured tissue.
Some of them, a lot of the elite sports, they actually put heat on it. I've heard them put heat on it, which at first shocked me, but then when I thought about it, I completely understood, because you actually, when you ice, when you put ice on it, all the vascular system in that knee, it constricts, it vasoconstricts, whereas you want to do the opposite. You want to get all the clotting factors and the healing and the white blood cells in there to break up the damage and speed up the healing. And so heat creates vasodilation, and so that's what they're doing. They're trying to rush more blood into that area. So But pharmaceuticals, yeah, they have their place. Battlefield medicine, as I refer to it, it definitely has its place. If you're in a situation where you have somebody who's dying or whatever, you want medical attention, you want pharmaceutical attention. It was designed on the battlefield of back in, for thousands and thousands of years. It's been developed, and it's effective, at keeping people alive in emergency situations. But as far as chronic disease or chronic injury goes, it really doesn't play a good role in the healing process, because very often pharmaceuticals hinder the healing process or the natural healing process. And so that's why
it definitely has a super important place.
It does, definitely, absolutely. I mean, I'm a naturopath. People think naturally I'm against pharmaceuticals, but my belief is that there is a place for the medical industry and the pharmaceutical industry, and it's an emergency medicine. When you have to, when your priority is keeping somebody alive, is survivability. You're looking for a doctor, you're looking for a paramedic. You're not looking for a naturopath in those situations. But
I often give the example in one of my health workshops is that if you've had a car accident, right, and you have to hold in your intestines, don't come to me to get an adjustment, right? You need to go to the hospital.
That's exactly right. And it's the same applies for naturopathy as well. The same applies for naturopathy, definitely.
All right, so we've got a bit of an understanding about the two divisions of your immune system, and then also how common pharmaceuticals that we might take might actually hinder our immune system. And then in light of this coronavirus hysteria situation at the moment, why don't we just talk a little bit about stress and how the stress can actually affect your immune system. And I really liked this quote from a professor who actually taught us myself at university. He's a medical professor as well, and he's into extreme sort of wellness practices these days. But I think it's a really good little quote. He says, "The body's reaction to an infection causes more harm than the actual infectious agent itself." So the stress and the hysteria around what's going on actually be more harmful for your bodies than what the infectious agent is. So just explain a little bit about the stress response.
So I think it's pretty well known that as soon as you start stressing out, you effectively suppress your immune system. I can't remember what the actual numbers are, but I believe as soon as you become stressed or which is almost the same thing, unhappy, you depress your immune system for like 24 hours. And so being calm and rational during these situations is really important. And but going back to the whole immune thing, when you stress out, what you're doing is you're activating your hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis.
The HPA axis.
And you're doing it in a negative way. And so what happens is your body puts you into the fight and flight mechanism, so your sympathetic nervous system. And so what happens is, on a chemical level, and this is what's important, your body begins to produce adrenaline and cortisol. Immediately all your blood supply, or I shouldn't say all, but the majority of your blood supply goes away from digestion, it goes away from your immune system, it goes away from the really important things, like reproducing, etc., and it goes straight into your muscles, your eyes, your brain, and you're effectively preparing to either run or fight, which is the fight and flight mechanism. During that time, like I was saying, your digestive system goes out the window. You're going to have a lot of gut issues, which people who are under chronic stress constantly have gut issues. Of course, the gut is one of the most important part of the immune system. The cortisol elevates your blood glucose levels because your body's getting ready to run. So you need lots of energy to do that, and that's in the form of glucose. So your glucose levels, your blood glucose levels elevate. And you talk to any diabetic, and they'll tell you elevated blood glucose levels makes you more prone to infection. Everything, thrush, everything. So if you're that statement that you made before about the very often the response is worse, and that's effectively what they're talking about. Is you become more susceptible to, in the case of coronavirus, you become more susceptible to infection because your immune system's not. It's just not geared to go.
And it's like almost like a seesaw-like relationship. When those stress hormones go up, the immune system as a result is going to go down, because when you're, it's a protective mechanism again. Like when you're running away from whatever animal it is that's trying to eat you. You don't need to be worrying about digesting food. You don't need to be worrying about your reproductive system or so much your immune system. And this is something that we spoke about in the office a while ago as well. That stress response, that fight-or-flight response is meant to be like a great spike or peak in your, in your continuum of stress. But these days, we generally live in a state where we have like a chronically elevated low level of stress. And is that something you see quite often?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. Chronic low-grade stress, prevalent. It's so prevalent in our society, mainly because we're all in these stressful positions. We live in stressful households because now everyone's working, no one's home to look after the kids and that sort of thing. I know most mothers who, working mothers are constantly under this chronic low-grade stress because they never get a break. Never happy because once again, they're working 5 days a week and then coming home, and then there's kids to look after and there's washing to be done, and that's effectively what does it. Yeah,
and I definitely see it here in the office as well. It's and the chronic level of stress.
I think the difference is that our stress response, our natural stress response, is actually fear response. So let's say, for example, you're walking down the corridor at home, somebody jumps out and goes boo. You immediately, your stress response kicks in. Your heart rate elevates, your blood pressure goes up, your adrenaline, cortisol levels spike. But when you realize it's just somebody and they're playing a prank, the endorphins kick in. You immediately come back down off that high, off that stress high. And so that is what's meant to be the natural high. This is why they say exercise is really good for stress, because what you're doing is you're artificially creating that endorphin response, and you bring everything back down. Whereas with chronic low-grade stress, which is what we experience in our society, we get this constant stress with no relief. You might get once every, say, 3 or 4 weeks, something happens, you get some endorphins, maybe you eat some chocolate, maybe you watch, I don't know, some sort of reality TV show, and you're happy. But other than that, you go straight back to work on a Monday, and it's back to the low-grade stress again. And so that's why everyone's walking around with these chronically suppressed immune systems, susceptible to everything. Especially if you're somebody who's catching influenza all the time, or the flu. I shouldn't say influenza because it's the flu. You have some pretty virulent strains of flu, like you got man flu, which is like the worst type of flu you can get. And this happens because everyone's immune system is suppressed because they're under this low-grade stress. Once again, I said before, we're going to give actionable information. So how do you overcome that? How do you overcome low-grade stress?
It's a good question. Sort of just trying to establish what stress is, and really there's 3 categories of stress. And there's physical stress. Maybe we sit at our desks for too long. Maybe we sort of flog our bodies too much at work. Previous injuries. But there's also chemical stress. Like what the air we breathe in, what we put on our skin, put on our hair, etc. And there's also emotional stress, which is what we've been talking about: work stress, financial stress, family stress. And the stress response, that HPA axis, which you mentioned before, it doesn't discriminate between the stress. So that internal response, it gets fired off, whether it be physical, chemical, or emotional stress, but it's often a combination of all those stresses as well. And I was actually reading this article the other day, which was a really interesting article, and talks about stress-reducing interventions and their effectiveness, and then the impact on the immune system. And it was meta-analysis, which is sort of the top of the hierarchy of research, and it looked at a whole bunch of other research studies. And like what we're talking about, the first thing it talks about is stressful events can influence the function of the immune system. It's sort of like straight up.
Nice. So they've taken a heap of studies, read about it all, correlated all the information, and then just go, this is what everyone's trying to say. I like those studies. They're the gold standard.
Yeah, they're right at the top there. And chronic stress suppresses the protective part of the immune system, and at the same time it promotes the pathological immune system, which is interesting. And so, and then how does that affect health? Well, a number of different reasons we've been talking about, but then sort of in relation to this sort of coronavirus and fighting off infections, viral, bacterial infections. It actually encourages the progression of infections, right? If we're stressed out and we don't have that well-functioning immune system, pardon me. So some really simple and easy to do tips, which is what they recommend, which is what we can practice all the time, regardless if we're in a more stressful situation now because of the coronavirus, or we're just living our day-to-day lives, which we're likely more stressed out than we should be. Something that we can implement anytime. So being mindful and taking some time out of your day just to think about your life, what you're grateful for, and being mindful there, and then also some meditation techniques as well. And these things, they can really easily, what it says, it can counteract the adverse effects that stress has on your immune system. And I'll just highlight a few other things which is quite interesting, because they also looked at healthy individuals, and then how your immune system actually improves with doing these stress regulating techniques like being mindful and meditation. It actually improves sort of the robustness of your immune system, even if you are a healthy individual. So practice these things regardless of if you're sick or healthy. It's going to create and enhance and develop greater health through boosting our immune system, which is quite interesting. And there's quite a bit of information here. I'll share the link as well down below so people interested, they can have a look. But they also found that in situations where people are experience a level of stress and they've been practicing stress-reducing techniques, then the inflammation response after that stressful event is actually lowered.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and so we're gonna talk about inflammation in just a moment. But yeah, just being mindful, it doesn't take a lot as well to take a few minutes out of your day, and you can. What I recommend to people here is when they lie on their foam rollers, that they actually don't watch TV, they don't listen to music. Sometimes I'm guilty of listening to music or podcasts, but they just try to be mindful, and then you can actually integrate some meditation whilst you're lying on the foam roller. It's sort of two birds, one stone.
Unplug, definitely, especially in this time at the moment. The best thing you can do for your mental health is unplug.
Yeah.
Get away from the noise and the drama and just.
Yeah, and it's almost like you have to relearn. Like you do that, you sit there the first time, and you're like, what am I doing? You start twiddling your thumbs. Like you have to relearn just how to be slow again, and not sort of go all the time.
I've definitely had to learn to do that. I was somebody who was very reliant on stimulus constantly. And I'm still am guilty of that, but I get times now where I can sit and be quiet and it took a lot to learn though.
Yeah, right. It's challenging. It's definitely challenging
in this day and age where it's constant stimulus.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I do now?
It's definitely challenging. But also want to share something else that sort of going back to other things that you can do to boost your immune system. That I remember, like whenever we'd get a little bit sick at home, and Mum would make us do this. She'd get a big bowl and she'd fill it with boiling water, and then she'd make us put our heads over the water and pop a tea towel on top, so we just have to breathe in that steam. And she'd often put eucalyptus in there, and eucalyptus has antiviral properties as well. And again, sort of in light with the coronavirus and just viruses themselves, they're often fragile. They don't do too well in warm, hot, or humid environments.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Enveloped viruses.
Yes.
They're not resistant to heat by the way that a naked virus is. So you've got like viruses like the rotavirus and Hep B and things like that are naked viruses. They're heat resistant.
Yep.
But whereas you have things like COVID-19, and then you have what are the ones, rubella and all those common viruses, enveloped viruses, meaning that they're in a lipid or a fat container.
Yep.
Very, very
fragile.
Especially in heat.
And this ties back to that professor from university who's now into sort of wellness side of things, and he says the best way to counteract these pathogens, whether it be viral, fungal, or bacterial, is to be healthy. It's like even better, like be extremely well. Do things all the time to create and develop your overall health and wellness. But he ties in as well to using saunas. I'm not sure if you have access to many saunas here in Mount Isa.
We have one right outside the door. You just walk outside and you're sweating.
And you're in a sauna. But steam, otherwise you pop your head over a bowl of steam, and he reckons in the early stages, it can have a chance of breaking down, the virus.
Definitely, when the virus is still in your respiratory system and it hasn't actually entered the cell yet. So the virus, what it does is it attaches itself to the cell membrane, and inside of that it's called a cuspid, like a little container, is all the DNA material, and what it does, it disengorges itself into the cell, and once it does that, it's like hacking the cell. It basically hacks the mainframe and tells the cell, right, you're no longer making stuff for yourself, you're going to replicate me, and then it replicates the virus many times inside the cell until eventually the cell just releases that virus out into the body again. That's how a virus reproduces. It replicates within the cell.
And because it is like coronavirus at the moment is a respiratory virus, so in the early stages it can be quite effective, but you have to do it for a period of time. He recommends that you expose yourself to that steam for at least 15 minutes. It needs to be hot, it can't just be lukewarm, water producing a little bit of steam. He reckons over 60 degrees.
Towel over the head. I'd say a lot of people would have seen their parents, especially somebody my age, like I'm 40, and so it was definitely something my mother did to me whenever I had a cold or flu or anything like that. Definitely.
So that's another little tip that you guys can do. Maybe
saunas. I don't know what you'd call that. Hot steam bowls.
Steam bowls with a bit of eucalyptus oil in there.
We'll call it steam therapy.
I'm just coining a new term there. So a little tip that you guys can do. But then we spoke about the response after a stressful event and the inflammation that happens in the body. And if you're better able to adapt and more responsive to handling your stress, you have less of an inflammatory response afterwards. Because it ties in really nicely, inflammation and the immune system. So let me just explain a little bit about inflammation, a bit more about inflammation.
I'll just add on to what you just said there. The reason that the inflammation response is less when you've been practicing these stress-reducing exercise or whatever you call
techniques,
them. Perfect. Is when you do these things, you're boosting your immune system. And so whereas before you had a depleted immune system, when next time this happens, your immune system is improved, it's more enhanced, and so the immune response doesn't have to be quite as drastic in order for it to actually achieve what it's trying to achieve, which is to protect you. You'll probably find as well is because your stress levels are lower, you're probably doing a lot better things as far as diet and exercise and things like that, and so your body is naturally, or your innate immune system is patrolling a lot better than it would be than if you were depressed, meaning your immune system was depressed, not you're depressed, but your immune system is depressed, and so but inflammation is an immune response. We pretty much have it happening constantly in our body. It varies from person to person. So you have a healthy individual, the inflammation response would be a lot less than somebody who's, say, very unhealthy, has poor diet, smokes, drinks a lot, doesn't exercise, and their diet is pretty much just McDonald's and the different fast food groups. And so you'd have a very different. And inflammation, before I go into it, you can see inflammation. Inflammation is very obvious. If you see someone who's very swollen, looks like they're very holding a lot of water weight, water retention, that's inflammation. So if you can imagine the way that I explain inflammation, because to me inflammation is a response to acids. So if you can imagine, if you have a bowl of acid, and that is a really, really hot acid, right? You put your finger in it, it's going to melt your finger down to the bone. The way that you dilute that acid is to pour water into it. Now your body does the exact same thing. If you have an over-acidic body, your body will, any fluid, any water that it can manage to get, it will use that to try and dilute the acids in your body. Now these acids are in your lymphatic system, and this is a fluid system that surrounds everything in your body. It's everywhere. It's it's under your skin, it's in your liver, it's everywhere. And it's what effectively takes all of the metabolites from natural normal living. So when your body is respirating, it produces carbon dioxide, pyruvic acid, all these other different acids, uric acid, So all these different acids from the way it makes. I don't know if you ever remember doing the Krebs cycle or the acetic acid cycle. Every single stage of that Krebs cycle produces acid, and it all gets dumped into the lymphatic system. And so that lymph system by nature is very acidic. That's why you have the kidneys that filter it, that filter all the acids out and urinate it out. But when that system becomes really acidic, the body just throws water into it. And when that happens, you look swollen. You get that swollen effect. Not in a good way, not in a bodybuilder's way, but in a I'm sick and I'm not looking good. You see a lot of it in the face. That's why when you treat somebody with an anti-inflammatory, be it pharmaceutical or herbal, or with any sort of diuretic, be it pharmaceutical or herbal medicine, the first thing you see is they slim down, and that's when they lose the water weight. So it's really interesting. But inflammation. So inflammation is an immune response to trauma, and be that, like you said, if it's physical, emotional, or chemical. So they're also the types of trauma. So like once again, the body doesn't differentiate between those three. It just knows that it's trauma. It treats, it very often treats chemical trauma the same way as it treats a blunt force trauma. You get a blunt force trauma to the arm. You get clotting factors. You have platelets. You have white blood cells, and of course you have histamine, because that's what makes all this happen. Same thing with the chemical. If you have let's say you eat something that's full of additives, preservatives, things like that, the body reacts almost the same way. You get a histamine, the body doesn't recognize it, or let's say, for example, it degrades the gut lining, for example, the body does the exact same thing. The surrounding cells release histamine, then you get all the clotting factors. You've heard me say this before. Everything comes there and it does the exact same thing. And so that is the inflammation. That is what inflammation is. It is in the medical term, or if you're doing anything to do with anatomy and physiology, you learn what's called the inflammation cascade. And so that's when your body begins to produce histamine and all these other immune factors or inflammation factors. And we can actually tell on a blood test. On a blood test, we can tell how inflamed you are, how much inflammation you have. We can tell there are, and I always forget them, I think it is the erythrocyte sediment rate. You have the plasma viscosity, and there is another one, I always forget it. But you can tell on a blood test, that's called your inflammation markers. And I always look at those. It's one of the main things I do. I get my clients to bring in blood tests, and I look at kidney function, liver function, inflammation. And like we were sort of talking about before with the injured knee, right? Like the inflammation, it's important. Like it definitely has its place, but it's not good when it hangs around for too long. Exactly. We call that when inflammation becomes really bad. It's often referred to as systemic inflammation, which means system-wide inflammation, and that is usually indicative of acidosis. It's probably the easiest way to explain it. You're extremely acidic, and this has come down to diet and lifestyle. And that's smoking, drinking, eating too much bad food.
And even from the conversation that we were having before, you've in some of your other interviews and material, you talk quite a bit about the diet, and you're talking about meat and acidosis and
I do,
raising or lowering your pH, making everything more acidic. So if you guys want to find out more about that stuff as well, you can
absolutely come on over to my channel. I constantly bang on about diet and meat, and and I use a plant-based diet because it is an alkalizing diet. It has shown both clinically, scientifically, and empirically that you can reverse the how can I put this, disease process, let's call it that. We can reverse the disease process by doing exactly that, removing certain things, meat, dairy, foods that contain high amounts of fructose corn syrup, which is your added sugar, aspartame, which is your natural sweetener, and then colors, I think I said additives, preservatives, salt, fat, all this stuff. I discuss this in one of my videos called the Bliss Point Methodology, where I discuss how manufacturers use sugar, salt, and fat to make something, or to find what they refer to as the deliciousness point, or the optimal deliciousness, and that's what they're trying to do. Yeah. So if you can get away from all those type of foods and just stay in the produce aisle of your supermarket and stay in the fruit and vegetables, even if you decide to do it for 6 months, just enough to reverse that disease process and bring remedy and wellness to yourself, then you're doing really well.
Yeah, and just going back again to the immune system and inflammation, and something that I share in our health workshop in the office is this little segment out of an article that was published in Nature, which is sort of like the top, most prestigious journal in the world, and it talks about how the nervous system regulates and modulates your immune system and the inflammatory response. Yeah, so things that often we'll do which will be beneficial for, let's say lowering systemic inflammation, boosting our immune system, they're also going to be beneficial for the nervous system. And that's in the office, that's what I talk quite a bit about, is the relationship that your nervous system, how it controls and coordinates your entire body, but also the relationship that it has with your spine.
Yeah,
so then,
absolutely.
Yeah, and then things to do, which we should be doing anyway, which are going to benefit our nervous system, our immune system, and positively affect the inflammatory response. Things like moving, exercising.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Get your lymph, if you move, move your lymph system.
Yeah, and because, I'm sure you're aware as well that the lymphatic system, most of it has valves. There are areas that don't have valves, but really how it moves along the body is through movement, right?
Yeah, so all your lymph vessels have these non-return valves in them, and it has like a siphoning effect. So let's say, for example, the lymph in my hand, how is it going to get to here if there's no pump? It does it through siphoning effect, and the only way that happens is by opening and closing the non-return valves throughout your lymphatic vessels, which follow your blood vessels. And so that creates like a siphoning effect, and the only way you do that is through movement. Yeah,
so movement's going to be beneficial for every aspect of our health. Yeah, so keep moving, keep exercising. Maybe if we're not allowed to go out in public spaces to exercise, there's heaps of information on YouTube, heaps of information you probably gathered from in the past. You guys can easily move your bodies at home, and then as well, obviously office here. We get the questions, we're still going to be open, what's happening? We're going to be here as normal, right? And we know that the spine and the nervous system, they share a unique relationship, and if our spines aren't functioning as well, that's going to affect our nervous systems. The nervous system is going to affect inflammation in the immune system as well. And there's been some research to suggest how dysfunction within the spine can actually negatively affect your immune system. And getting your adjustments, your regular adjustments, whatever schedule you're on or wherever you're at, making sure that you continue to get adjusted is going to be firstly beneficial for that spine and nervous system, regardless of what else is going on. But it's also going to help to make sure that our immune system is doing what it needs to do, and it's not being hindered by a poorly functioning spine and nervous system. So that's one aspect. It's not by no means the only thing, right? But it has its place, and we shouldn't stop doing the things. We shouldn't abandon the things which are good for us regardless, right?
If you're not getting nerve innervation to your major organs, so it's liver, kidneys, your heart, what else have you got? Your genitourinary area, and then you've got your adrenal glands. Obviously you've got your ovaries in the ladies. Like, you're effectively not functioning properly. You don't have optimal function. If your spine's not straight and you have and you're not getting that nerve innervation, you're in trouble. Livers don't work optimally, especially if you're a female or male. You got your estrogen and your testosterone production from obviously from ovaries and testes. Like, all these issues that can happen if you're not straight.
Yeah, and there's also interesting research as well that shows that a poorly functioning spine is actually a stress within the body itself. So that's actually like an internal stress mechanism that winds up that sympathetic nervous system, which is what we spoke about before. Then that elevates levels of cortisol and adrenaline within the body because it's causing that chronic level of stress, through activating that HPA axis, which we spoke about before.
Definitely.
So it's important from a spinal health point of view, a nervous system point of view, plus a whole body health point of view, that your spine is moving well and functioning as well as it can.
Recently, they discovered something called the glymphatic system, which is the lymphatic system of the brain, and it comes down the back here and follows the spine. And a lot of my mentors back when I was training said that if you don't have that straight spine, the lymphatic system of the brain won't work properly, and that's where you get the meningeal where it spasms, and you get all sorts of problems happening. You'll get you're only going to talk to people who are getting migraines and things like that to know that chiropractic care is so important. I mean, even if we're not discussing whole body systems, talk about headaches and neck aches and things like that. I know myself, I've had some pretty horrific injuries, and I suffered until I came and saw you.
Yeah.
So
Guys, keep getting your regular adjustments, because it's going to be healthy, good for your body no matter what's going on. Now, is there anything else you want to talk about or elaborate more on with the inflammation?
No, I don't think so. Go and check out Sasha's page. It's brand new. He needs the support. So go have a look. Dr. Sasha
Snycz. It's a difficult
it
one
right.
to pronounce. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I saw the way it's spelled and it really interests me. I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So go and check it out. Hopefully you can find him on YouTube, on Facebook. So
check it out. Just like, follow as well, and we hope that you guys watching this or listening to this that you got value out of this today, and you got a few things that you can do at home, and that if you did find value out of this, that you do share it with people who you think will also find value. So you can comment below, you can tag people below, you can share this video, and then check out, as Sean mentioned, my own page, but then also check out Sean's page, because as we spoke about before, he's got a lot more content, a lot more information, which is all really easily accessible on his platforms there. So would you mind reminding everybody about your platforms?
So I have Facebook, Siôn Williams Naturopath. I have YouTube, which is Healing Humans YouTube channel, and I have a podcast called Interview with the Naturopath. And my website, SeanWilliams.com.au. But come on into the office. We are on, what street are we on? Camberwell Street?
74A Camberwell Street.
There is a board on the wall here where you can actually write down any subjects you'd like for us to discuss in the future. Come and check it out.
You guys, get involved, because the more people get involved, right, the more people are going to benefit from hearing this information, because we're just talking about things that, firstly we think are important, but also what you guys have told us which are important. So we're going to have some more videos coming out. At the moment, the next leader, which is, I believe what we'll talk about next, is polycystic ovarian syndrome and endometriosis. It's sort of also going to tie back into stress and the immune system and inflammation as well. So stay tuned, I should say, for our next video. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to check in here and listen to some of this information. And until next time, see ya.
See you later.